It's March 2024, and Microsoft just released the March 2024 update. It contains a lot of information, a lot of updates rolled out. In this video, we're going to talk through the 8 key updates that came out from this, red hot updates. What we're going to be able to do is I've created a file. You can open it up and follow along as we go through each of these 8 different updates. So first, we're going to talk through the on interaction updates. They've done things to the pane. They've done things to new visuals. After that, we're going to talk about the mobile layout functionality. Previously, you had to drag and drop to create mobile views. Now you can click a button and it will generate its first pass at it for you. It's great. After that, there's going to be a matrix update. So previously, the data bars were only on the values. Now you can put them on the totals and the row totals and the column totals. After that, there's a small update for data labels alignment. This will allow us to, as we add more and more data labels, to just justify them, making small formatting updates to make the visual appear better. After that, this one's really cool. Copilot in DAX. What does this mean is we can just type in a question, create a measure that does XYZ for me, and will actually create the logic for us, as well as explain visuals. I'm going to demo that. After that, row level security has an update where the views used to be in the DAX query view. Now it's in this drag and drop kind of UI interface. I'm going to show you that one. Also, the DAX query pane is updated, and a new set of functions to show information about your data. I'm going to talk through that. And then finally, subscriptions now can send files directly to OneDrive. Previously, you could only email these kind of things. Now we can send them. In this file, you have supplemental videos as well you can check out. So let's dive into Power BI and go through these updates. Let's go. All right, so here we are in Power BI Desktop. What we're going to do first is I'm going to talk through how this file is orchestrated and laid out, and then we'll go through each tab, talk about these updates. I'm going to demo things for you. I'm going to show it. After this video, you will have an easily understood perception of all the new updates that came out. So first, in the description of this video is a link to GitHub. Go there and download this file so you can follow along. The way that this file is going to be laid out is every update is going to have a tab on interaction, mobile layout. We're going to go through all of these. At the end of it, you'll have a complete understanding, way more detailed than what Microsoft shares, of each update as well as some working examples. So let's dive into it. All right, first major update is on object interaction updates. And the way that this will go is I've kind of pasted some of the logic, or not the logic, but I pasted the text that came from Microsoft as well as some notes around it so we can kind of review it together and talk through it for each of these updates. If you're more interested in a certain update, fast forward to the one you're interested in. Okay, so first we're going to start with on object interaction updates. I love this stuff. At first, I was not a fan. I like the old school method, but I do like this much more. So very simplistically first, for the build pane, it's simplified again, showing all the visual types, and you have an option. So you notice I clicked on the right-hand side for the pane. So let's talk about each of these things. So the build pane is simplified, but first we're going to talk about is to obtain a suggestion. So there's 2 ways you can add visuals. As an example, I just created these as a test. So if we want to just pick a specific visual we know we want, like this gauge chart, which we'll go through, then we can go from the build pane, select the gauge, and just start populating it. Now, once we click it, say we click a measure or a value, it will show up in the gauge as well as the build pane. We could always drag and drop and move things around on the build pane as well as we see fit for any visual. But it also gives an option to create a suggested visual. So and you can change it. So in that case, I knew what I wanted, but if you're not sure what you want, you can just click any measure and it will just drop it on the canvas. And now it's going to show up by default with this to show visual types. It turns on arrange data for me. I like to turn that off so I have more control over everything. But now it's saying this could be a card or a table. And as we add more things to it, that will change. So suggested visual initially is this, but say I come down here and I add like the date. Well, now it's saying suggested visuals, maybe a line chart. And that's how we get something like what's up there. So that's a cool kind of update. But what's nice as well is the pane, or which is a specific thing you need to know, is that previously if you go to view, well, here's some key settings for the pane manager. It used to be called pane explorer or pane switcher, I'm not quite sure, but now it's called pane manager right up here in the top. I always like to set this as always show pane manager, and do not check show only one active pane. When you check show only one active pane, you can't really stack up tabs like this. It makes it more difficult. By default, these are the views I'm working with. You can just see on the right hand side I clicked the data tab and then the format tab, because I'm usually using the build stuff over here by clicking on a visual, going to this build section and just dropping things on there. But you have some options for formatting. In the bottom right hand side behind my picture here, if I click it, you can see that it actually pulls up just you want to enable certain features, report settings, specifically always show pane manager. This was the old way to do it, but now they've made it easier with this plus button. Click this. Now we can say always show pane manager, show only active pane. I deselect that, but then if you want to show additional panes, you can just show them. Maybe you want to see bookmarks, maybe you want to see selection. Well, you can pick them. So it's a nice little update there. Keeps things organized with the workflow. But what the final update is for on interaction updates is previously the gauge visual did not have on interaction formatting updates. If you don't know what these are, it makes life easier. So if you click any visual that supports this formatting, well, previously, if you want to change the colors, and this is the way I still do it because I just like it, I go to the format pane, I go to the color section, I kind of start filling things in and picking what I want to do. Well, when a visual supports on interaction update, you can just click it. So I'm clicking in here, and now it just takes me automatically to this fill color section. I can change this. Maybe I want to change the title. Well, I can just come up in here and click into it, and it takes me to the title section. So the gauge visual now supports that. That's the updates for the on interaction. There's some notes over here if you want to check it out as well. So let's go to the mobile layout, auto create. Here's what this is. So for any of you who have ever created a mobile view, we're going to do a quick test of it right now. But it used to be kind of a pain, and it still is a little tricky, but you would have to add every individual visual and make it laid out your own way from a blank canvas. Well, with this update, what they've done is first you want to make sure this feature is enabled by File, Options, Settings, Preview, turn on Auto Create Mobile Layout. What this has done is now when you select to create a mobile layout, and this will automatically give an option to put the visuals in a spot based upon what Copilot thinks, and then we can move them around. So what that looks like is if we go to View, and now I want to change the mobile layout. And again, mobile layout is going to be applicable when you have a Power BI service, because you can publish content, people can go and view it and look at it, and as they do on their phone, it will show and render in this view. So if we click to see what this looks like, let's click into mobile layout, and boom, right there, it kind of jumps to a cell phone. But previously this feature didn't exist, where auto create mobile layout, but it just used to have all the visuals, you had to drag them by default. So what we can do now is click this, makes it way easier. It starts with a suggested way to organize these things. I put random visuals on the page for this test, and then you can move them around if you want. Like I don't want this here. Let's put these two KPIs at the top, and it kind of works like PowerPoint or any other thing where things automatically create. Here's a chart. Here's this working out. Maybe let's make this store longer. And there we go. So now we just created a mobile view, and it was that easy. So and again, you can tweak this out any way you want. You can move things side by side, and you can really get into it. But that auto create feature is great for just getting a base going. And now when you publish this mobile view is how the report will show up. You can deselect it to exit that view. But what it just did is now, and actually if you hold your cell phone, when you do that, if you hold it in landscape view, it will look like this page. But if you go into mobile view, it will look like that. So it's just another nice tool, an easy way to create this kind of stuff. So let's go back. Now the next update, the third update that really stands out are the matrix data bars. And actually, I don't really like it too much. So I'm going to show you a couple of different things, but it's important that you know it's there and a problem with it from what I've observed. So if you're aware of data bars, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to show you this. This is a video I just recently published that shows how to create this like must-see matrix that takes values and aggregates them, but then also shows that value in a column chart displayed right here with a value and a label and everything. I think it looks awesome. It's a native way you can build matrix visuals, but this is how it's kind of by default, which I don't like as much. But what this is saying is previously, if you go to a matrix, I create a random matrix here. And again, follow along with this. You can click through and see. So if I turn on data bars, right here, we'll go to this. We'll make them green just to make them stand out. And we'll jump back and forth. So what this is saying, and actually let's do this. We'll make the negative red. So for the data bars, previously this is all that was available. And what they've enabled with this feature is if you go into the data bars, now you can select values and totals or totals only, and you'll get bars everywhere else. So for example, if I do totals only or values and totals, there's one big thing that I don't like. And maybe this will be fixed in a future update, but it requires you enter a minimum value. This takes away all the static or dynamic intelligent kind of formatting. If you do values only like it currently is, you can say the minimum is the lowest value and the maximum is the highest value. That makes it really, really dynamically easy. I think for this update, they were maybe trying to push it out. But if we pick this, values and totals, then we'll have to choose a minimum. So in this case, I'm just going to pick 0, and at this one, 800. And so again, I don't like it as much because you can see that now data labels or data bars are here, but I proactively had to know here's kind of my highest. If I start filtering with things, it's not going to be as smart or intuitive. But that's the feature. That's what they've added. So I think it's important to know, I still like to just stick with values only on this stuff for right now, because if you do values only, again, you can put this to the lowest value and the highest value. If I'm missing something, let me know in the comments. But here's what I suggest you check out. Copy this URL, put it into your browser, and check out this video on how to build a matrix like this. Essentially, you can take something that looks like this and make it way cooler with any kind of visuals. So check that out. But that's another update. The fourth update is kind of a smaller one, but it's important to understand just the detail. So back in November, they released a lot of updates for data labels, and there's a bunch you can do with them now. But this specific data label update is going to enable formatting. So if you go into, I have an example visual here, data labels. What I've done is there's multiple levels of this data label. So there's a value, and that value is shown as net sales. I could even turn a title on. So you've seen this. So just for the sake of it, you can call it a series name, a custom. I'll just, you can do another data for the title. So we'll just blow this thing up even more. And we'll call the title net sales that. Or actually, let's take this away. Let's go like this. So essentially with the title, you can add another one. This is a good spot to put like a column thing maybe, or whatever. You can make it dynamic. Again, I'm just experimenting with the titles to show you that there's three layers you can play with for any data label: the title, the value, and the detail. In this case, I've added values to each of them. They don't quite make sense with this example, but what you can do in the update now is if you have multi-line selected, you can now organize these by centering them, right justifying or left justifying. That's the big difference. But again, I think it's very important to understand that how to use these things. And there's other videos I've done, like with reference labels, where I've spent 45 minutes detailing how to use these and have them set up with arrows and everything going up and down. So feel free to check out that as well. But that's the update, the multi-line formatting. Let's dive in now to the fifth update. And this is pretty crazy stuff. This is pretty cool. So what you need, firstly, is to have a Power BI service that has a premium workspace. Your data set does not have to be deployed into it, but you have to have a premium workspace. That's like the settings. That's a requirement to enable these new Copilot features. And if you have that, you need to make sure your tenant settings are set to enable the Copilot functionality. I've talked about that in other videos as well. But in case you don't have that ability, I pasted some screenshots here from the blog, but I'm going to show you as well. This is going to be the future of writing DAX. I'm probably going to do a whole video on this one another time. What is this? Essentially, it's a way now where we can just ask Power BI to write the DAX calculations for us. We don't know how to do it. Just give them some words and have them write it. Test it, review it, go from there. We'll look at an example, as well as ask questions like, what do these values mean? What does this DAX query mean? So I'm going to show you that too. So to do this, we're going to go to the DAX view. These are other queries that are set up that we'll look at in a little bit. And we're going to have a new query down here. So if you're not familiar with this, we'll kind of get familiar together here in a second. But what you can do is I kind of created this, help me with this one as an example. But if I just go to Copilot, the first time you click this, it's going to ask you to connect to the premium workspace. So you need to have one of those set up or it won't work. But now that we are connected to it, we can start by asking questions and to write stuff. So it's smart enough where it's already taken in my data model and it understands what all these things are and the various roles and stores and everything. So I'll show two examples. We'll start easy. So if I say, create a calculation that summarizes the net sales for the Atlantic store region. So there's a region called Atlantic. There's a calculation called net sales. I didn't even spell things correctly. It might not work. It's still new. I'm probably going to do a whole video just on this one, but it's now processing that. And actually, look at that. It wrote it correctly. So what it just did was it created a calculation that says evaluate, calculate row, and it created this for me. Calculate table, row, net sales amount. Actually, I don't like the way that it wrote that. Because I think you need to revisit it. But this is where it's still playing with it. I'm playing with it at the same time. But like if we said, create a DAX calc which aggregates the net sales amount for the Atlantic store region. So let's see that. So it's going to do probably something slightly different. I did the same thing. So it essentially creates that. But this is where it's a feature we need to keep playing with it. So I kind of was looking at it here where if I take this, to throw things into the query editor, you can click define and evaluate. So this is an example one for net sales, and I wanted to change it. So say you have a calculation, and I was doing it earlier, and I actually wrote a correct version of it where it would define this measure. And I wanted to define a measure, and it's called the measure net sales, and it said calculate net sales for the store equals Atlantic. So that's an example of it working and actually defining one. In this example, it didn't necessarily create it correctly. But there's going to be a ton of power here. So what this means is play with it. You got to just keep trying this thing out. And again, I'm going to have another video, but this feature just came out. It's super new. Another thing you can do is if you go to Copilot Preview, you can also just have it explain things to you. Like say, for example, I know I want to start ranking values. Well, I might say, explain what the different rank functions do in DAX. And that's not even phrased correctly. I should have said, explain the different DAX ranking functions, not explain what the different rank function do in DAX mispronounced or it's misspelled. So if it still interprets that correctly, that's going to be a good thing. But now it's processing it. And so here you go. So in DAX, there are two main rank functions, rank X and rank ZQ. And it always starts with the summary. But you can click this and it gets way deeper. So now it just explains here's how you use the rank X. You set it up this way. Here's what it does. It explains it to you. I think there's going to be a lot of potential with this, especially as it becomes more and more intelligent. And even my skills improve with understanding how to use it and demoing it properly. So again, Copilot Preview is pretty darn awesome when it's going to come to how we can create measures without knowing DAX necessarily and building something. So that is key. And again, here's some examples where it was finding the measure and doing it correctly, but play with it. These features, you need to play with it to get just a better understanding. Okay, number 6, row level security update. I put a picture here and I will create a few roles so you can understand. But if you're familiar with row level security, essentially what that is there's lots of different ways to set it up. So at a very simplistic level, once you publish something to the service, someone's going to access it. As they do, it will obtain their credentials and you can pass them into either a bucket, a grouping. So for example, in this case, maybe there's people that I know are in certain stores. So I'm just going to drop them into a store row level security group. I'll show you a demo of that. Other more sophisticated row level security automatically reads you, automatically reads the data I can see. So there's just different levels to do it. But the update is around, we used to have to use a DAX editor to do this. And now it's set up to default to a cool view, which is shown right here. So here's what that looks like. When you go to view and, you go to modeling, you're going to manage roles. So I created 2 example ones. We can look at them. Again, the old school way was you had to switch to the DAX editor and type in DAX to do all this kind of stuff, which is not necessarily complicated, but it's not as user-friendly. But now it's just defaulted to this sweet editor. So I created a role called Contoso Store, and it's basically saying the store equals this. I created another one that said Leo Store. If you wanted to create more, 101 style, just put store name here, whatever one you might want. And then you can pick whatever values you want, filter data. In this case, I want the store equal to, store 1. Call this store 1. Again, this isn't a real one, but this is as simple. That's as how easy it is to set this up. And so then when you save this, when you publish it, this has errors, which makes sense. So let me delete this. It's funny, I made some funky role. I'm not quite sure how to fix it. But if I just delete it for now, hit save. Essentially the way to do this now is manage roles. And to test it out, if we go to view as, I can pick the store, and this will filter all the data here for that store because I set it up that way. So we can just go revert if you even wanted to, that one I just deleted, to show how to do that. That could be a good quick test. So if we go to, it shows me viewing as the store is Leo, but I'm just going to come back to here and pick none. Let's go manage roles. And I want it to be this one. So we'll literally just create what I just talked about. I'll call this console store. Come to the store. Store equals. Save that. Easy peasy. And now as you publish it, you can put this person into that store. And as they view it, they'll just see this. And it's as easy as that. So it's just a really nice way to improve the editing experience for row-level security. Though if you want to still use DAX, you can. It just makes it a little bit easier. Okay, some more DAX query updates. We're going to go back to that screen. And the key kind of things we're going to call out is that there's a share feedback. the query tabs, as well as coach marks, but then also these cool features or these functions that give information about your data model. So if we go to the DAX view on the left-hand side, well, you'll see now these check marks, these coaching things that kind of say, this is working. This one's blank because I started to create, nothing's in there. If you make something that doesn't work, it'll be a check mark or an X box for saying this doesn't work. But what I wanted to look at are these functions, which came out as well, and I'll list them. If you want to get information about your data model, well, now you can use these. So if we run this, it will give us information about the model, the measures, the dimensions, the cube name, but also we can get into things like the size, storage table column segments, order by size, the number of rows, the allocated size for each of these, some real detailed admin style metrics, storage table rows count, how many rows are in each of these things, info on columns. Here's all the various columns. You can link it to the table ID. So you can build, if you wanted to, a more detailed kind of lineage about the model. Relationships, here's how everything's related. But in the update, it specifically calls out these new things are available. And it lists it out here, or in this right here. So that's kind of the update for the query view. And another very cool update is the subscriptions to OneDrive, the 8th one. And so in this one, I also put a link so you can see a video for how to create dynamic subscriptions. And this feature, it's released in March, but it's not rolled out everywhere. So where I am, it's not rolled out yet, but it will be. So I put a picture of what it's going to look like. But essentially the problem is that historically we could only send a subscription to an email, really. So we could email someone a link to the report, email them a copy of the report. But if we wanted just to send a file, maybe we want to export a file to a location, people can go look at that location, look at the file. We used to be able not to do that. Well, now we can. So there's a couple of key things. You need to have the workspace in a premium capacity or fabric capacity. And it's going to be not for dynamic yet. So that will come. So you can just pump out a bunch of files to a spot, but it's going to be standard. And what you'll need to do is go to attach full report, pick the version that you're going to want for that, and then the outputs. You can then select send it to OneDrive. But most importantly is like if you want to do a solution where you're sending like an Excel file or something as a data set, and you want to load it into a location over and over and over, or a detailed export, you want to use the paginated report builder to create something, because you're going to have way more subscription options. But at a high level, you should now know that at least soon, it may take up to 3 weeks for it to appear wherever you live, we'll be able to send files directly to OneDrive versus just email. So that's awesome. Those are the big 8 updates that came out. But there's also some noteworthy stuff I just want to call out. And I also put some additional links here for you to check out. So there's a visual calculation tutorial I've created where it goes through how to unlock and use these visual calculations. But there's a small update to this that will allow you to, in the service, you can edit the calculation. It's noteworthy, it's kind of a nice little thing. I also created a maps tutorial a while ago. And what this is going to allow you to do, this update, is it just includes the ability to upload additional reference layers to the Azure Maps. So you have to go download a file, you can upload it and put more overlays, is what that does. And then finally, a quick little flyout is like in the developer project now, you can just click this drop down. You can see Power BI Pro projects, stuff about your file. So by clicking this right here, and it kind of lays it out, you have the file, the report name, if you're connected to a semantic model, and everything that's there. So March 2024, these are the updates. There's going to be more updates every single month. They keep them coming. I will always give you a breakdown like this where you can follow along, track updates. We're going to get into some more stuff in detail. The Copilot DAX creation thing is new. I'm going to really unpack that and create some more stuff for you guys too. So enjoy, leave a question, a comment. Thank you very much. Talk to you later. Bye.